Ever since I was a kid, I have totally loved rodents. I was never one of those kids that was squeamish about rat tails or mice or anything stupid like that. I totally loved them all the time. So when I was 12 years old, my parents finally agreed to let me have a rat. And I have been keeping them on and off ever since then, so almost 15 years. Ouch. Oh, I'm old. So that means I have gone through pretty much every type of cage and bedding you can imagine. And I just wanted to share a few of the things that I found out, just in case you're either thinking about getting a few friends of your own, or if you'd like to upgrade your current pet's digs a little bit. So the first rat I got when I was 12, we put into a small glass aquarium, which is literally the worst possible cage you could put them in, short of just letting them run around your house, which you'll never see them again if you do that. So the reason that you want to avoid glass is for the obvious reason there is no ventilation in those things. Even if, you can say, well, air will come out the top, except if there's no cross breeze, there's nothing to push the air out the top. So it's going to just settle inside that cage. And things that are denser than the air, such as water vapors from water bottles, food, treats, urine, feces, all that is going to stay down in the cage at respiratory levels. And rats are really, really prone to respiratory problems. So literally, if you're going to pick anything, do not put them into a cage that has every side solid. I mean, a few solid sides, as you're going to see in a second, is fine, but you want at least one side to be very, very well ventilated. Otherwise, it's going to be gross in there. The cage sides are going to get steamy. You're going to have to clean it really often. You're going to have to be really careful about how well you dry the cage, because anything, from cleaning is going to stay in there. So it didn't take me very long to realize I did not like glass. I wanted to move on to something else. So I wound up buying one of those 3-level deluxe wire cages. And this worked pretty well, except for a few main drawbacks. One, every single side, you go from every side being closed to every side being open, including the back, which means you have to be super careful about what you put that cage near, because rats have nice little hand-like paws, and they will reach through their bars and grab anything just anything. If they think they want to pull it into their cage to make a nest with it, they will. I have had posters and photos ripped off the wall. I have had bedding far larger than you ever would have thought they could have moved, but they've, drug bedding when they got a hold of the corner of the bed. No matter where you put it, you just got to be really careful that they can't reach anything. But more importantly, cleaning them is also a problem, because now, again, instead of having these solid sides that are going to, let steam build up, you're going to have all these little nooks and crannies. And the problem isn't usually the main spaces between the bars. The problem is the cross beams where the supports are, because all of a sudden you have this teeny tiny little X, and dirt and feces and urine like to get right into those little crevices, and it basically means you're going to have to sit down with a toothbrush at least once a week, and you are going to have to scrub that thing until your eyes bleed. Like, you're going to have to put a lot of elbow grease into it. And this is going to usually wind up with the paint coming off the bars eventually. You're going to have to deal with rust. There's different types of wire you can look into, but this is a really common problem because urine and feces tend to be a bit corrosive, and so unless you're, literally pulling their cage apart every single day, which they're not going to like, and neither are you, you're going to have some buildup that you're going to have to deal with. So I wound up realizing that I didn't like this either. Additionally, there's different types of bedding you can use. I started out with wood, and I switched over to paper-based beddings and cat litter, and I never found anything I liked there. I mean, I would definitely suggest paper-based more than wood, just for respiratory issues, but also the ick factor. The wood tends to clump more, tends to stick to the bottom of the cage. The best I ever came up with in the wire cage was several layers of newspaper, followed by paper-based cat litter, followed by paper bedding for them to play with. And yet, inevitably, they would always wind up pushing all the cat litter out, ripping up the newspaper, and then completely messing up the direct middle floor of the cage. So after going through the glass and the metal, going through the paper-based and the wood-based beddings, I was in my early 20s and pretty much decided I didn't want to do this anymore. I loved my pets, but I decided that when these ones passed on, I wasn't getting new ones. I just didn't have the time to dedicate to all the cleaning and, if you live in the Northwest, I had to take the cage outside to clean it. It's constantly raining. It was never a fun time. Until one day I went with a friend of mine and her daughter to ONSI, which is the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry, and they have a room there full of animals. They have, everything from like stick insects and snakes and spiders to rats. They have some big, giant, squishy, fuzzy rats. And I was immediately captivated by the cage system that they used for their rats, because I had never seen anything like it before, and it made so much sense, and it was the most obvious thing, and I couldn't believe that I hadn't realized to do this before. So I want to go ahead and show you what I've wound up putting together. I put this together a little under a year ago, so my boys are almost a year old now. And ultimately, it wound up costing just a tiny bit more than the the wire cage that I wound up using, and it has been a lifesaver. So let me go ahead and show it to you. Okie dokie, so as you see, this whole cage goes from the floor all the way up, nope, to over my head. The whole cage is not quite 6 feet tall. The cage part has, I can't close that side with the light in the way. The cage has these two simple doors. Yeah, looks like that side right there. I don't need to use any latches because the doors are so big and heavy, and this little in-between part that I installed bumpers it enough that they can't push these doors open, and honestly, they've never really tried. So, nope. The great thing about this cage system is everything comes apart. This is just a little safety bumper. It's just a piece of PVC pipe. It's just so that when the doors are open, there's just a little bit of a safety net. If they're wrestling around, they're not going to fall out of it very easily. All of their bedding is washable now. I don't use any paper bedding. I don't use any chips or anything like that. Everything they have is, old t-shirts, old towels. I went to the fabric store and just bought a ton of cheap fleece and flannel to use as the main pieces of their bedding, and they just kind of, they push it around as they want to. All of this, you can buy this at Home Depot if the cabinet you get doesn't have enough shelves. Just custom cut it. It's melamine covered, so it's waterproof. It wipes down super, super easy. I just use a little kids and pets disinfectant on it. You can install shelves on the sides. Food cups can attach onto the grating. This is actually a bird treat. They really like those. And down the back, we have one long, super long ladder, and then another little ladder that leads down to the bottom. Every one of these shelves also comes right out. So I can take this whole thing apart and just wind up with an inner casing, basically. And I can disinfect the whole thing. I can have this whole thing taken apart, cleaned, dried, put back together with fresh bedding in less than 20 minutes without having to go outside, using just a bucket and a sponge and a vacuum cleaner to get any dry bits up. Everything can go into the washing machine and then comes back out, so I don't have to buy new stuff anymore. And their hammock even is really just a piece of fabric that's been folded over several times with holes cut in it to put these straps on, and just some little eye rings at the top installed in, a little bit of caulking to hold it in place. All in all, the project really didn't take very long to complete. I went a little bit slow just for budget reasons, and I got the whole thing done in just a couple of weeks. You could really knock this whole thing out in a couple of days, given enough time to caulk the seams, because it's a good idea. It's probably not going to show up very well, but back here, just use a little bit of bathroom caulking. Just so that they're not, because I'll show you what happens with when you don't caulk it and they get the idea. They will start to think that they can chew on the edges, but really, they've been in here for a year, and that's about the extent of the damage they've done, is this one little spot. Rats in general are not going to destroy their home as long as they are well cared for. As long as they have food and water and it's relatively clean and they feel safe, they aren't going to try and chew their way out of it. Hi there, Ralphie. Where are you going, buddy? Come here. So there it is. That is, in my opinion, in my non-professional but experienced opinion, this has been not only the best for me, the easiest to clean, the cheapest to maintain in a long period of time. Oh, there you go. But this has also been the best for them. It is the healthiest. It has the best combination of open area ventilation as well as solid sides so that I don't have to constantly worry about them trying to eat my walls. And yeah, if you're thinking about getting any rats, I would say that this is definitely your number one best bet. Anything like this, any cabinet will do. Just go to, I got mine at IKEA, but you can get one anywhere. You could go to a used store or a garage sale, anything that you can finish to be waterproof.